My father, Robert Callahan, senior partner at Callahan and Associates, one of Calgary's most respected law firms, told me the day I introduced him to Marcus that I was throwing away everything he had built for this family. Not just my future. Everything. 4 generations of lawyers, judges, academics, and I was standing in his kitchen, 22 years old, telling him I was in love with a man who installed drywall for a living. "You want to bring a construction worker into this family," he said. Not a question. A verdict. Marcus was standing right there. He didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at my father and said, "Sir, I love your daughter." That was it. Simple. True. My father turned and walked out of his own kitchen. I thought they would come around. That's the thing nobody tells you about being young. And in love, you genuinely believe that people's hearts can change when they see how happy you are. My mother, Patricia, I kept calling me for the first few weeks after that dinner. Not to apologize. To strategize. She had a list of men she wanted me to meet. A junior associate at my father's firm. A dentist from Mount Royal. The son of one of her friends from the Calgary Golf and Country Club. Every call ended the same way. With her saying, "We just want what's best for you, sweetheart." And me saying, "Marcus is what's best for me." And then silence. The last call came in October. I was 3 months along by then, though I hadn't told them yet. My mother asked if I had come to my senses. I told her I was pregnant. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard in my life. My father got on the line. I hadn't even known he was listening. He said that if I chose to continue down this path, I should not expect any financial support, any presence at any family events, any relationship at all. He said the word embarrassment twice. He said that a Callahan woman did not build a life on a construction site. Then he said something I have never repeated out loud to anyone. Not even Marcus. Something about the baby. About what I should do about the baby. About how it wasn't too late to make a different decision. His voice was completely flat when he said it. Like he was discussing a file on his desk. I hung up. Marcus was at my apartment within 20 minutes of that call. He hadn't even texted him. He just showed up with Thai food from the place on 17th Avenue that I liked. And he sat down on the floor with me, because I couldn't make it to the couch. And he held my hand while I cried, until I ran out of tears. Then he said, very quietly, "We're going to be okay. I promise you we're going to be okay." We got married the following February, at the Edmonton courthouse. It was a Tuesday. Marcus wore the nicest shirt he owned. I wore a cream-colored dress I found at a consignment shop on Jasper Avenue for $40. Our witnesses were his coworker Devin and my best friend from university, Simone. That was it. No reception. No flowers. No speeches. We went for dinner afterward at a steakhouse on White Avenue and split a bottle of wine and laughed so hard at something Devin said that I nearly choked. It was the best night of my life. Our daughter was born that April. We named her Claire. The first years were hard in the way that first years always are when you are young and building something from nothing. Marcus was good at his work, genuinely good. The kind of tradesperson that contractors called back again and again because he showed up on time. Worked clean. And never cut corners. By the time Claire was 2, he had started taking on his own clients. Small renovations at first. A basement here. A bathroom there. He was careful with money, in a way that I admired deeply. Every extra dollar went into savings, or back into tools, or toward the insurance and licensing he needed to grow. I had finished my business degree before Claire was born. And I went back to work when she was 14 months old. I took a junior position, at a property management company downtown. It wasn't glamorous. I answered phones, chased down maintenance requests, sat in on meetings where nobody asked for my opinion. But I paid attention. I learned how the numbers worked. I learned which properties made money, and why, and which ones bled cash, and why. And slowly I started to understand things that the people above me hadn't thought to explain to me because they assumed I was just passing through. Claire grew up in a house full of hard work and laughter. Marcus coached her soccer team from the time she was 6. I helped with homework at the kitchen table every night. Even the years when I was exhausted down to my bones. We took road trips to Banff and Jasper in the summers. We made pancakes on Sunday mornings. We built something real. The 4 of us, Claire and Marcus and me. And eventually, Marcus's mother Ruth, who moved in with us for a year after her hip surgery and who became I and genuinely one of my favorite people on earth. I thought about my parents sometimes. Of course I did. I thought about them on Claire's first birthday, when I set up the high chair, and there was no grandmother on my side to put her arms out. I thought about them at every school concert, every soccer tournament, every small ordinary moment that families are supposed to witness together. I thought about my mother when Claire asked me once, around age 7, why she didn't have a Grandma Callahan. I told her that some families are complicated. She accepted that with the easy grace that children have, and then asked if she could have a snack. And I held it together until she was out of the room. I did not reach out to them. I want to be clear about that. I made the decision early on that if there was going to be a bridge built, it would have to start from their side. Not out of spite, just out of self-preservation. Every time I had imagined calling them, I imagined my father's voice, flat and certain, telling me what I should have done about my baby. And I could not do it. Years went by. Marcus built his renovation business into something genuinely impressive. By the time Claire was in middle school, he had a crew of 8 and a reputation that stretched from Calgary to Red Deer. We bought a house in Inglewood, near the river. I had moved up at the property management company, eventually into a portfolio director role that I was proud of, in the quiet way that you're proud of things you earned entirely on your own. Claire was 17 when she told us she wanted to study law. I don't know if I can explain what that felt like. It wasn't painful exactly. It was something more complicated, a kind of full-circle vertigo. Like looking down from a very high place. My father had wanted a Callahan in law. He had cut me off for not fitting his plan. And now here was my daughter. This funny, fierce, serious girl, whom Marcus and I had raised on Saturday morning pancakes and Banff road trips, and the complete absence of any Callahan money or Callahan expectation, and she wanted to go to law school on her own terms. Because she had decided it was what she wanted. You know your grandfather is a lawyer, I said. Carefully. I know, she said. That's not why. She got into the University of Alberta's pre-law program on academic scholarship. We celebrated at the steakhouse on White Avenue, the same one from our courthouse wedding dinner. Now a family tradition, and Marcus gave the kind of toast that reminded me, for the 10,000th time, why I had chosen him. That fall, I got a message through LinkedIn. From my mother. It was short. Professional sounding. Almost. The way people write when they have rehearsed something too many times. She said she had seen a mention of my company in a commercial real estate newsletter. She said she was proud of what I had accomplished. She said she thought about me. She said that she and my father were not doing well, and that she would like to talk if I was open to it. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't answer for 3 weeks. I'm not proud of that. But I needed time to understand what I actually wanted from this. Because I knew myself well enough by then to know that I could easily mistake the thing I wanted: acknowledgement, apology, some recognition that they had been wrong for a thing they were actually capable of giving me. I finally called her on a Sunday afternoon in November. While Marcus took Claire to look at apartments near the university, my mother picked up on the second ring, which told me she had been waiting. She sounded older. That was the first thing I noticed. The particular crispness that had always been in her voice. That Calgary old money precision. I had softened into something more tired. She asked how I was. I said I was well. She asked about Marcus, which surprised me. I said he was well too. Then she said, "Your father has Parkinson's." I let that land. She told me that the diagnosis had come 18 months ago, that the progression had been faster than they had hoped, that he was still working, or trying to, but that the firm had essentially been restructured around covering for what he could no longer do. She said the medication costs were significant. I did the math later. And for a Parkinson's patient in Alberta, without adequate private insurance, it was not unreasonable for ongoing drug costs and specialist care to run to several $1,000s a month. Especially for the newer medications that weren't fully covered under provincial health. She said they had made some investments that hadn't gone the way they expected. "I'm not calling to ask for money," she said. Before I could respond to any of it, "I want you to know that. That is not why I'm calling." "Okay," I said. "I'm calling because your father asked me to." Her voice caught slightly. "He's been asking me to call you for almost a year." I kept telling him. I didn't know how. I didn't know what to say. "What did he ask you to say?" There was a long pause. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "He said to tell you he was wrong," she said finally. "About Marcus. About all of it. He said he's watched what you've built, and he knows he was wrong, and he wants he would like. If you're willing, he would like to know Claire before he can't." I had imagined this moment many times, over 20 years. In some versions, I was cold and certain. In some versions, I cried immediately. In the version I actually lived, I sat in my kitchen looking out at the Bow River Valley and felt something very quiet and very sad settle over me. Like the first snow of the season, which covers everything equally, regardless of what it lands on. "I need to talk to Marcus," I said. "Marcus." When I told him that evening, was quiet for a while. Then he said, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know yet." "Then we wait until you do." That was who he was. That was who he had always been. I thought about it for weeks. I talked to Simone, who had known me through all of it, who had stood in that Edmonton courthouse and signed her name as our witness. I talked to a therapist I had been seeing on and off for a few years. I did not talk to Claire about it right away, because I needed to understand my own position before I could explain it to her. What I eventually understood was this. I was not going to pretend that 20 years had not happened. I was not going to erase the phone call where my father told me, in a flat voice, that I should not continue my pregnancy. I was not going to perform a reconciliation for anyone's comfort, including my own. But I also was not going to let a dying man's wish to know his granddaughter go unanswered, simply because his dying made me inconvenient. Not for his sake. For Claire's. She deserved to make her own choice about who she wanted in her life. I called my mother back in January. I told her that I was open to a conversation. I told her that Marcus would be part of any meeting, not negotiable. I told her that I would let Claire make her own decision about whether she wanted a relationship with them, and that I would not push her in either direction. I told her that I was not coming to this as a daughter seeking her parents' approval, because that person no longer existed. I was coming as a woman who had built a good life, and who was choosing, deliberately, to open a door that they had closed. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's fair. We met for the first time at a neutral restaurant. My choice. A place in Kensington that I liked. On a Saturday in February." My father looked older in ways that went beyond just the Parkinsons. Something in him had gone quieter. He walked with a cane. His hands trembled slightly. He was still wearing a dress shirt. Still pressed. Still, the Robert Callahan, who had never owned a casual Friday in his life. But the verdict voice was gone when he stood up as we approached the table. He looked at Marcus and extended his hand. And Marcus shook it. And my father said, "I owe you an apology. That's the first thing I want to say." I watched Marcus's face. He nodded. He said, "I appreciate that. Nothing more. No performance of forgiveness. No gracious speech. Just acknowledgement. That was enough." I thought. That was the right amount. It was not a warm reunion. I want to be honest about that. It was careful. It was two people who had hurt each other, sitting across a table, and trying to figure out what, if anything, existed between them now. My mother reached across at one point and put her hand over mine. And he let her. Even though part of me was still 22 years old, and standing in a kitchen in Mount Royal hearing a door close, Claire met them in March. I told her everything before the meeting, not to prejudice her, but because she was 18 years old and heading to law school, and she deserved the full set of facts. She listened with the particular focused attention she got from her father. The kind of listening that made you feel like every word was being considered carefully. "Do you want me to go?" she asked when I was done. "I want you to do what you want to do," I said. "That's the only answer I have." She went. She came home 3 hours later and sat down at the kitchen table where she had done homework her entire life and said, "He's not well." A statement. Not sad. Not cold. Just a fact. "No," I said. "He's not." He asked about my law school program for almost an hour. He knew things about U of A's program that I didn't even know. "He's a lawyer," I said. "It's the only language he has." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm not going to pretend he's the grandfather I always wanted. It's too late for that. But I think I want to know him while I still can." That was Claire. 22 years ago. Her grandfather had called her existence an embarrassment. And here she was, choosing generosity, not out of naivety, but out of clear-eyed, deliberate grace. My parents are not healed people. I don't expect them to become healed people. My mother still says things sometimes that remind me exactly who she is and where she comes from. Small comments. Reflexive. About appearances or expectations or the correct way to do things. I let most of them go. I have gotten good at letting things go. My father is declining. The Parkinson's has progressed in the past year. He doesn't work anymore. He sits in the living room of the house in Mount Royal where I grew up, and watches legal dramas on television. And Claire visits him on Sunday afternoons, and argues case theory with him. And sometimes, when I pick her up, she says he seemed sharper today. And sometimes, she says it was a hard visit. I drive her home, and we talk about it, and then we stop for groceries and make dinner, and the world continues. Marcus finished a major commercial renovation contract last fall that will keep his crew employed for the better part of 2 years. He celebrated by buying himself new work boots and taking Claire and me to the steakhouse on White Avenue. He gave a toast. He always gives a toast. There is no clean ending to this. There is no moment where everything that was broken got fixed. I did not forgive my father because he got sick. I did not forgive him at all. Not in the way that word is usually meant as a door swinging fully open. As though the past dissolved. What happened is something quieter, and less satisfying, and more true than that. I looked at an old man with trembling hands who wanted to know his granddaughter. And I decided that closing the door all the way was not the person I wanted to be. That's all it was. A decision about who I wanted to be. Marcus asked me once, not long after that first restaurant meeting, whether I regretted reaching out. I thought about it seriously before I answered. The way he has always deserved. No, I said. But not because it fixed anything. Because Claire got to make her own choice. And because I wanted her to see that you can hold your ground and still leave a door open. Those two things aren't opposites. He looked at me for a moment. Then he said, she already knew that. She learned it from watching you. I thought about my father telling me I was throwing away everything for a man who worked with his hands. I thought about what those hands had built. I didn't say anything. I just took Marcus's hand across the kitchen table. In the house we had bought ourselves. In the life we had made entirely on our own terms. And that, I think, was enough.